We're back again talking more about this update edit functionality that you're adding to your app. And I've got Chrome open here, and if you edit, let's see here, no, view, developer, and developer tools, it will open up this console. Just make sure that console is selected because that will help you. I'm going to go ahead and log in. Let's see, this is really easy. And then here it's going to go straight to my collection. So I've got these two objects here in my collection. And when I click on one of them, the card has been set up with an on click, and it will go to /edit/ID. And that's going to take me to the place where I can edit my data. And you could see here that if I put my cursor down, it actually goes down not into placeholders but true values. And then so I can edit that information the way that I want to. And this is baby fox, and that's good enough. And then it saves, and you notice after I click save on my mouse up, it came back to the collection list again. So that's how the edit works, but it's important that you get this right in React. And so I'm going to bring over the edit form. Okay, so if you remember when we were working with the form, I talked about this component property here, that FX component property. When you go into, so in this case, my form was called UI edit Fox. And if you go to your code, you can see you just go to SRC and then go to UI components. There is a UI edit Fox here, JSX. In that JSX file, scroll down to about line 48, 49 or so, and you see that there's this information right here. It's very important, 48, 49. There's the FX. So that is the value or the label that you gave the UI component that we were just showing. So yours is going to be different from mine, but you need to remember what that is, because in your edit JSX form, you're going to use the same label. And then notice that the model is set to be my model. So that's the model that's in your database. So you just go to your data or content, and you can see that the model, it's going to show us in a second, is Fox. If it doesn't come back to me, you can see here, that's the table name, that's the model name. So that's the one that I'm using, okay? So those are two important values that you need to see. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to go to the app.js. In app.js, we can see that I have three routes. One route is my root location, and that's the /. The second route is the new, which goes to my new Fox React component, and then edit database ID goes to my edit Fox, my edit React component. So my edit React component, you could see, is right here in the same directory. And if you go to it, there's some code here at the top. You could see that in this code, there's a function right here, the put function. This put function is very important because what it's going to do, it's going to look at the URL and grab the only parameter that you're passing, and that's going to be the database ID, and it's going to set it to the label CID, or the variable CID. And later CID is used. I don't think it's necessary to change the CID. You could just leave most of these variables the way they are, but the variables that you'll need to change are, you could see in line 20, there's the model. Your model name is different from my model. And then you can also see these, by the way, that I have two console logs. This is really output that I'm outputting to the console, so I could say, oh, this should be an array object, and look, here's the name. So name, in my Fox table, there's the name field. In my model, I have the name field. So you'll have to change this word to be something that you have in your model, a field that you have in your table, and it's going to be something else. Okay? And then later in the return, you could see that it's going to, right now I'm in edit Fox. It's going to go to the UI component, and it's going to pass it this same variable fx with the ID that's returned from up here. So you don't have to change that CR either, but you do have to make sure that this is correct. So I wanted to make sure that you saw how this worked. And let's go back and see here. If I click on one of these, like I'll click on this baby fox again, you could see the console to the left. It's actually repeated the console messages twice. This should be an array object, and you should be able to see in your console that there's some array showing, and there's one row, the 0 row, and that row has the database ID, the FID, the name, which is, we can see that it's baby. It's not showing the whole thing. Oh, here we go. Baby Fox, here's the ID, FID. So all the information is right there, and all this information can be used in your application. And underneath it, you can see it says, look, the name field is Baby Fox. So if I go back up here and I look at the name field, it's Baby Fox. So these are just confirmations to me, because I wanted to see, is it actually getting the data? Because if you run this and you look at the console and there's nothing there, then that means you have other problems. You have bigger problems. And but if you're getting the data to the browser console, then you can actually get it populating over at this point. So that is where this function connects to what's actually happening. So if I go back, notice if I click on my nav bar, it'll take me back. I could click on this card, and then it's different. It says, look, the name field is Joey. So again, and it has the information populated as values, and then when I save, it's going to save it to the database properly. You can see that I have the ID. So that's how all those pieces work. You need to have a React component. You need to have your UI component, which you set up. It started in Figma and it was finished up in the UI library in the studio. So here I have my nav bar, and then that's how everything gets connected together. One last thing that I want to show you that's associated with this is when you're in the collection, each card needs to have an on-click for the whole card that will call the right URL. So if I click on Joey, it's going, do you see the URL at the top says edit, and it has Joey's database ID. So if I go back and I click on Baby Fox, you can see there again the URL changes to baby fox ID. And I even put the ID up here just so I could see it again, but actually I'm going to take that off while I'm in this video. I don't care. I'm going to take this off right here so it doesn't do that anymore. Okay, so now let's take a look at that card from your UI library, and this is card B is my Fox card, and I'm going to configure it. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so we can see it really well. And then you could see, start with the left object browser, and then you could see I made the component property FX here, which is fine. And then I did an on click at this level. So I wanted to be at the card level. I did a child property plus, and then I made an on click. And then on click, my action, I wanted to be go to URL. On click, go to URL. And then my URL is /edit/, and hit enter to save it. And then you want to do a command enter, and when you do command enter, it's going to ask you what do you want to append, and I want to append the ID. So when you set this up on the card, it will go to the URL, and then React is going to take over and notice that your URL changed to edit with an ID, and it's going to use this page to get the parameter, the ID parameter, and then it's going to set it, find the correct record in the database and then send that back so that you can have all the data in the form. So it starts with clicking on the collection card, and it finishes up with the edit card. So there's the edit card. So that's how that whole piece works. I'm going to have this, I'm going to send out the GitHub repository that has all of these files so that you could look at them a little bit closer. Good luck with working on that, and we'll see you in class.